What's up, guys? Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to give some tips on how to be gooder at reading. It's important to read good, read well, be well read. We're going to go over some things about location, which, as we all know, location. It's very important. Some tips on things to avoid while you're reading, before you're reading, and after you're done reading. Ways to read more books, and just general gooder advice on how to be gooder at things like reading. First and foremost, where you read is one of the most important things of reading. Technically, you can read anywhere, but one of the things that you should avoid the most is reading near a screen, unless you're reading from your e-reader, which is your screen. However, in that case, I recommend only having ebooks on the e-reader and not actually having anything else on it. So mine is just an e-reader. That is literally all that I do. There are no games. I don't use the web browser. I don't recommend using it on yours. In fact, you should probably just uninstall it. Only read books on your e-reader and you will be more successful at reading. Back to location, however. You need a lovely spot, such as the Nook, with good lighting so that you're not reading in a darkened area. Natural light is preferred if you can stand it. Some of us are vampires. I totally understand. Comfort, highly important. And like I said, don't be anywhere near a screen. That is extremely important because they, as you know, are distracting. You are trying to look at the page, not a screen while you're reading. That will distract you and it will take away from your ability to absorb the words, which is how you retain what you read through osmosis, Jones. So, number one, location. Find a comfortable spot that doesn't have a screen. And honestly, I highly recommend having an entire room that is screen free because that is liberating. In an era where we have TVs and tablets and phones everywhere accessible all the time, it is very rewarding and physically recharging to be in a space that doesn't have a screen. If you have the ability to go outside and read outside, I highly recommend it. I did it for 2 hours yesterday during a nice breeze, and it was a treat. Right around 11:30, when the sun was highest in the sky nearly, getting the vitamin D while I'm filling the D's brain with words. I think I read probably 100 pages outside yesterday. Fantastic. It helps because, again, you're not distracting yourself. So, on that same vein, let's segue into avoiding distractions even further. If you use social media, do not post before you read. I can tell you from experience that if I post something and I start to read, I'm going to find myself absentmindedly thinking, how is that post doing while I'm trying to read the book? It's quite frustrating. It happened more in the beginning of the year when I was starting this whole thing than now. I very rarely get distracted now because I've eliminated nearly all distractions. But it does take a factor. If your mind is elsewhere while you're trying to read, you're not retaining the words. And again, part of gooder reading is retainage. You want a good retaining wall in your brain. And to do that, you don't need notifications. Okay? That's our next point. On your device, let me just pick this piece of skin off of my thumb real quick. Don't do that. Do this instead. On your device, turn off your notifications when you're reading. Turn them off, period. I don't have my notifications on. I fucking hate them. That's the truth. I don't want to see notifications from anybody except text messages and phone calls. That's all that I want. And 98% of my phone calls now are spam, so I don't even want those. I want to throw the phone in the trash. Have your phone in a completely different room than where you're reading. Take the opportunity to charge it at that point in time. You've doom scrolled enough. Now you're trying to get lost in a different world that isn't changing every 4.5 seconds. Okay? So, first and foremost, don't post on social media before you start reading. If you do, heaven forbid, just turn notifications off. And third, put your phone somewhere completely different than where you're reading. It shouldn't be anywhere near your book or your nook where you're taking a look at the book. Okay? You want it to be completely out of mind, out of sight, out of mind. Okay? It's a behavioral change. You need to work on it. You know you have a problem. Put it down and walk away. It's that simple. The most important thing, the absolute most important thing about reading is read what you like. You read what you are interested in. You don't have to read what I'm recommending. You don't have to read what everybody else is reading. Find what jumps out at you. For instance, How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. I had no idea what the fuck this book was. It's absolutely crazy, by the way. I finished it in a day because it was so engrossing, even though it's slightly not well written. And neither was the construction of that sentence. Not very good. It is, however, refreshing compared to a lot of the things that I've read up to this point. I just saw it at Barnes and Noble. It was just there on the shelf. And I was like, huh, this is a little bit different. I think Ernest Hemingway once said, it's good to be bad. And he didn't. This book takes that to heart and really runs with it. It's very vulgar, but we'll get into that when we get into the review. Point being, I was interested in it. I've never heard anything about the book, never heard anything about the author. I just said, you know what? This title is intriguing. I enjoy the cover art, the text, and the font. Very outspoken. It just jumps right off the page. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And I really enjoyed it. You'll find out later. But that's the absolute most important thing. If you're trying to read books that are pushed on you that you're not interested in, you're going to fucking hate it and you're going to want to put it down. Now, counterexample to this, at the library, I picked up one of the author who wrote Annihilation, which is a great series. My wife absorbed it in 3 days. She read all three books day. I tried to read the book Dead Astronauts. Dead Astronauts is like an indie film, but worse. Okay? Indie films are different, they're creative, they're trying to make a point, and they go about it in a very bad way. That's the best way I can describe Dead Astronauts. And the other best way I could describe it is that I wouldn't recommend it to my own worst enemy. This book is just not for me. And that's why it's important to have personal taste. Personal taste helps you know what you're into. Now, obviously, should you branch out from time to time and read the classics? Yes, because they're classic for a reason. Okay? All things happen for a reason. They're dried and delicious. They go well in trail mix. Also, raisin bran, not a promotion. Personal taste. Okay? You need to start developing it in every part of your personality. Okay? Stop being what you absorb and be yourself. That starts with what you consume. What films do you watch? What games do you play? What books do you read? What children do you kick on the street? These are all personal tastes that come to you in your own brain. You may not like fantasy, which is what I'm highly into. You may fantasize about doing anything but fantasy reading, and that's fine. Find what's good for you. So far, let's recap: location, minimizing distractions, reading what you love. Those are my three absolute most important tips on how to read gooder in the modern era. Okay? Now, some other things that help. Okay? These are just helpful things. They're not going to be numbered. I'm just going to start rattling off stuff. Tell people about the books you're reading. Not while you're reading them, unless you're really into them, but tell them about what you're into if they're into the same things. My buddy who recommended Johannes Cabal, and I didn't realize it 3 years ago, I recommended to him Dungeon Crawler Carl. He, like me, finished all 7 books within 2 weeks because they're that good. It's fun to be able to discuss these things with other people, which leads me to my next tip. Find a community for the type of books that you're into. Discuss those books with other people. You don't have to do a book club, but you can still talk about these things with like minded individuals. Do not, however, go on Reddit. Don't do that. Ever. Just don't be a Redditor. If you have a Reddit account, delete it immediately. Also, the same kind of goes for Discord. All right. I think there's another app called Discourse. I've never used it. I'm kind of done with the whole online community thing. This guy just recommended online communities and he doesn't even use them. I'm not you. You're not me. These are just tips for thee and we. Again, because, I've got friends. Maybe you don't have friends. I discuss things with my friends. If you don't have friends, then find online people to discuss them with, okay? We're different people, right? I'm not bragging about having friends. I only have 4 of them. 3, 4. One of them doesn't even talk to me anymore. So maybe it's 3. Anyway, do book reviews. Who would have thought? Yeah, write a review. Write a comment on a video about a book review. Do it online. Tell me if you read the book. Do you like it? What books are you reading? Call to action. Every good video has one. Create a Substack about the books that you're reading. You know what? That's actually a good idea for myself. I should do that. If you have social media, brag about the books you're reading. I've read 51 books so far now that I finished How to Become a Dark Lord. Actually, 52. I'm working on the 53rd. It's called Ascension, I think. No, Senlin Ascends, part of the Tower of Babel series. We'll get into that in a little bit. I've read 250 pages of that in a day. Yeah, because I know where to read, when to read, and how to read. Good. Additional tip: do you have children? Do you take your children places? Do you pick them up at school? Take a book with you that you can read in the carpool lane. I can't tell you how many small books I've finished just in the car. All right. Do you have a job where you have to go to the office? Listen to audiobooks. Listen to the audiobook of the book that you're reading. Okay? Say you finished chapter 7 of Dungeon Crawler Carl. Now you got to get your dumb ass in your car, drive to your fucking job that you hate, but here's how you make it better. Listen to Carl in the car. Dungeon Crawler Carl. Okay? On your break at work, bring the book with you. Read the book while you're at work on your break. Read the book while you're supposed to be working. Fuck your boss. He's a piece of shit capitalizing off of your labor. Seize the memes of production. Okay? Bring a book with you wherever the hell you go. I do it all the time. I'm not performatively reading. I'm reading because that's what I want to be doing at that current juncture in time. versus whatever the fuck it is that the rest of you are doing because I abhor it. Okay? Trying to think of a few other things. I think the most important ones have been discussed. So, if any of this has been useful to you, or you have any additional tips for anybody who might be reading or listening or looking at this particular video, you can't read the video unless I put subtitles in it. And so far, I haven't been transcribing them for you. Apologies. Perhaps I'll do it with this one. Just take the moment to do it. Okay? It's important. I think you'll like it. And overall, you'll have something to talk about that other people won't or do because they're into the same shit as you. So, this is D. I have been within the Nook giving you everything so that you can cook at being a gooder reader. And as always, if this has fancied you at all, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Look at the little flashing button down there after I said subscribe. That's really eerie. And overall, have a great day. Enjoy whatever story you're into at the moment. And just do